We're here today with Jess, who is the company nutritionist at GLW Feeds. And we're really just interested to find out more about the day-to-day demands of her role and what it is that would typically make up her role. So, hi Jess.
Hi.
Thanks for having a conversation with me. So, can you just talk us through a little bit about what a nutritionist actually is? What is your, what would typically be your role?
So, for what a nutritionist is, there are loads of different parts of being a nutritionist. So, we always talk about a pyramid. So, you've got the most technical, scientific-based nutritionists will be sat with your premix companies or your additive companies, and they will be doing a lot of trials and a lot of exploration of new products and development. Then there's me, who sits in the middle, and I'm a nutritionist for a feed company. And I would say that my job role is then the most broad, in that I will take that information from the science and bring that down onto sort of farmer-based levels, and making sure that those decisions are practical for the mill and profitable for the farmer. And then sort of sat alongside me, I've got mill formulation, so making sure that the product quality is right, there's the limitations around production, not putting too many new products into the mill, things like that. And then the other bit of being a nutritionist, and the bit that I really love, is the on-farm nutritionist bit.
Right, so there's all different sides then, so it's not just, being a nutritionist is not all about just going on farm.
Oh, no, not at all. No, you've got to manage all three of those. You've got to be able to look at the science and be able to be analytical around the science and the developments of the industry, and then also be practical on farm day to day. You know, a farmer's day to day trials isn't going to be their methane inhibition. Usually, what it actually is it's managing silage stocks. It's making sure that their cow health is all right, managing the different limitations in production or changes that the milk buyers putting in and things like that, all to make sure that their business is as profitable and as efficient as possible. And that's the bit that I love.
That's so interesting. So do you think people maybe starting out in their careers, do you think they always know all the sort of different sides? Do you think there probably needs to be a bit more, like perhaps us doing this, a bit more education with regards to that?
Absolutely. And don't, I think you will never ever miss out. You'll never ever be as good as if you missed out on the fundamentals of the compound nutrition bit, because where you're sat in the compound feed industry, you get to see all of it. You get the science, you get the technical stuff, but you also get the farmer stuff. And then you can move whatever way you want. If you want to be more on farm based, you can be more on farm based. And similarly, if you're at the, you want to go into more science based roles, then you can offer that opportunity as well. And with the compound for graduates and things like that, if we're chatting about new grads today, if you're sat at the on-farm bit, you're never going to be confident and be able to offer the support that the farmer needs as a new graduate, because you've not had the experience, you've not had the exposure, and you'll lose your confidence if you do start at that bit. So I would always recommend starting under an existing nutritionist who's got quite a broad spectrum of things, and then you can pick stuff up day to day and learn about the production and the compound side of it, as well as and blend formulation and all that comes. You get raw material markets, the sort of commercial aspect of it as well, and then you can build on that at farm level. But without that fundamental, you won't get it.
That's really good advice. And so, what are they to obviously get to your position? What qualifications particularly would you suggest people need? And I suppose if you want to come into it, and for example, for people that want to transition maybe from sales, which is really good, and maybe become a bit more of a nutritionist, what would you advise qualifications route?
I mean, there's a lot of qualifications out there. So my route myself, I was a dairy farmer's daughter, so grew up and knew a lot practically on farm, was involved in various aspects of dairy farming life, but knew I did not want to milk cows. And so then I went to Harper Adams and did a degree in animal science. And my degree taught me how to evaluate science. It did not teach me how to feed dairy cows. So then I went to a company called Haygates down in Northamptonshire, and they were fab, and I learned underneath a chap called Dr. Wilf Retter, and he taught me so much. And that was that is more important than qualifications. There are a lot of options out there. You can do your cow signals training. There's a lot of on-farm training that you can, sort of like on-the-job training you can do. So cow signals, you could do a lot of training with premix companies, and they often teach you about like diet formulation software and things like that. But the majority of it is having a good person to learn under. That would be my advice to anyone: is if you want to be a ruminant nutritionist, is find somebody that you can work alongside and work with and sort of learn their information, because that will that'll be so much more valuable, because it's evaluating farms and information from science and bringing that all together.
That's so interesting. And so your typical week then, what does that look like?
So I tend to do a Monday in the mill. So for me, I find that really useful, because that gives me a gauge on where, there's all the limitations with production capacity and situations with the mill if we've had any issues over the weekend. So I'll always sit with that. And also looking at pricing for going forward for the next week or month. I'll always sit and do that mostly on a Monday. I'll then have a day out on farm, and a day out on farm would normally be get there for the end of milking. Unless it's a robot farm, get there for the end of milking, and then you can see cows, you can see lameness, you can see body condition score, overall cow evaluation. You'll be able to see the TMR, hopefully when it's freshly fed, because that's really important. On the feed face, look for sorting and the practical applications of nutrition on farm. And then I'd then go in, hopefully at breakfast time, then I'd be able to go and have a coffee with the farmer, look at production records, which is normally like milk results and things like that, and make an overall plan of where we're going for the next quarter, next 2 weeks, however often it needs to be, and make a full ration evaluation, but based on all the practical and the purchasing decisions around raw materials, and look at that. I then might, for the next day of my week, I might come to something like this. So we're at Dairy Tech today. I might look at, I'm looking at new technologically advances, product development, things like that. That's what we're doing here today. And then probably another day out on farm supporting a sales rep who might have a challenge with dry cow management or something like that. That's the other bit of it, is problem solving. So I do an awful lot of problem solving, which involves being out on farm and asking questions. So
it's such a unique skill set, really, because when I was still learning about nutritionists, obviously I've learned a lot from you, is I suppose I didn't really realise how much there was for the personal people skills. You can always have a vision kind of sometimes of like a formulator sat in a back room a little bit more, but there's a lot that you need to sort of master, I suppose, to take you forward in your career.
And I think to be successful, like, communication is so key, because I need to be able to communicate with the teams, like I say, the miller is a huge part of it, and that's often a bit that gets forgotten about as a nutritionist. And they've got their own challenges, and then you've also got the farmers' challenges, and being able to listen to what challenges the farmer's got is really important. What's driving him, what makes him progressive, what's his interest, what's his aspirations and his goals, and then what are his problems today. And you normally, you've got to be able to see that and find the problems around that. And then communicating with the rest of the sales team as well, and making sure that because we do quite a lot of product training and development of younger members of the team, and making sure that we can communicate that with them is really important as well.
Yeah, I bet, because one doesn't work without the other, does it? So, that's really interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
That's all right.
It's been very educational, and please stay tuned. This was obviously part of our 25 in 25 series, and we'll have other series and talks coming up to really give a day in the life of the different opportunities within our sector. Thank you.